Today in the Comicstorian channel, we're going to be bringing you another story of the Symbiote Spider-Man saga. I'll explain what that is in a second, but it's basically black-suited, venom-controlled Spider-Man off doing heroic things? This is the Comicstorian channel where I take some of your favorite trade paperbacks and single issues and I break them down into digestible bites. I help you understand what is going on in the world of comics by giving you a synopsis of current storylines, be it a single issue or in this case, a full storyline. This allows you to go out and buy the comic yourself, gaining a lot more context and art, or get the next issue and you still know what is going on. All alterations to the panels, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. So today we're going to be bringing you another chapter in the Symbiote Spider-Man storyline. You see, a few years ago, Marvel realized people like black-suited Spider-Man, but storyline-wise, it didn't make any sense for Spider-Man to get the symbiote suit back. And for those who don't know, the symbiote suit is where Venom originally was. Before he went over to Eddie Brock, he was actually on Spider-Man. That's the classic black suit. So what they decided to do was tell in-continuity stories involving Spider-Man while he had the Venom suit, but then continually give us reasons why he forgot he had done that. So this is taking place in the 80s of Spider-Man's life. So today's storyline is Symbiote Spider-Man Crossroads. It was a bright and sunny day as the people of New York gathered to try and catch a glimpse of the president as he comes in through the city. The Daily Bugle's J. Jonah Jameson and Robbie try to wait and get a story just as the president gets out of his car to shake Jonah's hand. And at that moment, he's suddenly webbed. Jonah shouts, "It's that webbed menace! He's blown it this time, attacking the president in front of millions of people! You're finished, webhead!" Spider-Man swings down in his black costume. Yeah, I'm sure that's what the story's going to state. The Secret Service all pull out their guns, yelling to step away from the president, and Spider-Man asks, "Who? This guy? That's not the president." He grabs a hold of the president's hair, pulling it back to take off the mask, telling them, "This is the chameleon," which I'm now guessing isn't having a good day. Jonah stares, telling him, I don't understand." And Spider-Man holds up Chameleon's webbed hand, telling him, he was actually poisoning everyone that he met, toxic ring on his finger. And the Chameleon looks at Spider-Man. "How did you know?" "A friend told me. Now where's the president, Chameleon?" "You gotta let me go, Spider-Man, or the president dies." "How about you tell me where the president is, or you die?" Chameleon is stunned by this statement. Excuse me, is that supposed to scare me? Says, when did Spider-Man make threats like that?" Spider-Man stops. "No, not me. A friend." "Look down." Still not believing him, Chameleon looks down and sees a red dot on his chest, and Spider-Man tells him, "That's my friend Frank," also goes by the name Punisher. So after a few moments, Chameleon sighs, telling him, "President is at 387 Park Avenue South, 7th floor." So a short while after taking the Chameleon in, Spider-Man meets up with Black Cat, and she asks if it all went okay. Shining that laser did the trick? Spider-Man tells her, like a charm. She then tells him, "Good, because I got another tip. Heads up robbery." After discussing where she got the tip from, Black Cat explains that it's at the Natural History Museum, going for the Viking artifacts at exactly 9 p.m. Spider-Man's stunned. That's exact. Maybe too exact. And she tells him that she's beginning to think the same thing. So as the night fell and the museum closed, the guards all went on patrol when suddenly they come face to face with Moondark. Moondark waves his hand, telling the guards to go play in traffic, and a second later, the guard begins to laugh and run, yelling, "Whee!" With the coast clear, Moondark then begins to look for what he was sent to retrieve when he notices a small stone by itself on display. He says that must be the Glowstone. What an imaginative name! But before he could grab it, Spider-Man calls out to him and Moondark spins back, blasting him with an energy blast, and he obliterates Spider-Man. He begins to laugh. "Ha ha! I did it! I beat Spider-Man, but my victory is short-lived," as Spider-Man begins to jump out of the shadows, punching him. Yeah, really beat the heck out of that web dummy. Spider-Man jumps around, throwing out some quips, and then he webs up Moondark's face. Moondark, in retaliation, throws his magic around, hitting everything but Spider-Man. As the police officers begin to arrive because there's a big commotion happening at the museum, Moondark explains that he doesn't need to tap into Spider-Man's mind, he'll take the weak-minded police officers. The officers all begin to then shoot at Spider-Man as Moondark teleports away. He rips the webbing off of his face, reaching for the Moonstone, but before he could grab it, he feels his feet being pulled out from underneath him with a wire. Black Cat holds a cable telling him that he just needs to stay down, but Moondark casts more magic, stating, "This is one of those moments I love being an evil magician. I get to launch counterattacks laced with irony. Now sick him!" As a giant conjured tiger lunges at Black Cat, she leaps back telling him, "You tell that to a dog, you moron!" And Moondark tells her that everyone's a critic. Now, with both Spider-Man and Black Cat busy, he breaks the glass case, grabbing the glowstone, reaching for it when he's suddenly struck by lightning. He shakes his head, confused by what had just happened. And he then casts a spell to protect himself, but as he reaches for the stone again, nothing happens. Spider-Man and Black Cat shake off their pursuers, and Moondark holds the stone, stating, "Now you will face the utter power of Moondark!" Nothing happens again as he tries to use the stone, and he whips his arm out, holding it, shouting, "Moondark! Moondark!" Still, nothing happens. So Black Cat asks if they can hurry up. She has a movie to get to, and Moondark yells, "I don't understand! It's the Norn Power Stone. It increases whatever power you have." But while everyone is staring confused at what is even happening, Moondark is electrocuted again, and the guard from before laughs. Black Cat looks at him asking, "What even happened?" And the guard from before who had electrocuted Moondark tells her that he ran into traffic and got hit by a car. Spider-Man picks up the Norn Stone, stating that he isn't one to look a gift horse in the mouth, but wonder why this didn't work. A voice tells him it's because it requires the touch of a godly being to activate it, such as Karnilla, the Norn Queen. The stone was surrounded by a charm that prevented her kind from handling it and shielding it from magic users, but Moondark attended to that for her by removing the protection spell. With a flick of her hand, the Norn Power Stone is pulled out of Spider-Man's hand and into Karnilla's, and she stares at it, stating that she can feel its power already. Spider-Man quickly hits her, stating that he needs to be quick if she really is some sort of goddess, but Karnilla lashes out, screaming, "You dare hit me!" A portal opens up, sucking Spider-Man in, and Karnilla tells him that she isn't even going to fight him. "Farewell, you pathetic." And just as the portal begins to close, Spider-Man webs up the stone, pulling it in with him. The portal closes, throwing Spider-Man and the Norn Stone onto a series of roads as he asks where is he even at. And that's when he hears a growl, and when he looks back, he says, "You've got to be kidding me." The Hulk shouts again as he steps closer, and Spider-Man tells him, "Hey, big guy, how's it going?" The Hulk charges in swinging, and Spider-Man pulls himself out of the way, yelling, "Jeez Louise, calm down! I don't want to be here any more than you do!" Wait, didn't Doctor Strange send Hulk off to another dimension where you couldn't hurt anyone? Well, so much for that! Spider-Man swings over to another path, asking, "What is this place anyway?" And a voice chimes in, "It does not know it's at the crossroads of reality." And another voice tells him, "Indeed, there is much it does not know, certainly not the power it holds." "I can hear you!" "In power? What are you talking about? This thing?" Spider-Man says, holding out the stone. But before he could look at it further, the Hulk smacks him away. Spider-Man quickly grabs the stone before it can bounce too far away, but as it comes back, it slams into his forehead and sinks into the suit. Hulk begins stampeding towards Spider-Man, but this time, as he punches, a fist punches it back. Spider-Man begins to stand up with a more alien-like look and sharp teeth, yelling for him to shut up. He claws at the Hulk, knocking him down, telling him, "I could barely hear myself think!" And seeing what he just did, Spider-Man laughs. "This is amazing! I've never felt so strong before! Like nothing can beat me again!" Hulk gets back up, swinging his massive arms, narrowly missing Spider-Man, but as one lands squarely in Spider-Man's face, he stops. And Spider-Man stares. "Oh, my turn." He sends the Hulk flying across the realm. But back at the museum, Black Cat says she doesn't understand. Why are they here again? Can't he just fa-woof and wave his arms around and see where Spider-Man went? But Doctor Strange tells her, "You do know how many dimensions there are, right? And as for what we're trying to do, we've come here so that I can recreate what happened by surrounding the ley lines." As the events begin to recreate themselves with a wave of Doctor Strange's hand, he sees the portal that took Spider-Man, but Karnilla begins to shout, "Stay out of this! Do not interfere in the affairs of Karnilla, the Norn Queen, or I swear on all that is holy, it will not end well for you, wizard." As Karnilla disappears, the two stare, and Black Cat asks, "Just who is that?" And Doctor Strange tells her, "Karnilla rules an Asgardian province called Nornheim, and trust me, you wouldn't like it there. Karnilla is a powerful sorceress, and if she is interested in this, saving Spider-Man just got much harder." Meanwhile, elsewhere in the jungle, a group of primitive cavemen surround a creature that they were hunting, when suddenly a portal opens. Spider-Man and Hulk come barreling out, slamming into the ground, but as Spider-Man begins to get back up, a spear is thrown through his arm. He kicks the caveman away, yelling, "Ah!" Impacts aren't a problem, but the pointy stuff, that still hurts. However, Hulk punches, launching him into the ground, where Spider-Man begins to feel himself getting a bit slower. He tries to shake off the mud from his face, but without much luck, he pulls back the mask, giving himself some air. The Norn Stone dislodges itself, flying off, and Spider-Man asks, "What are you doing again? Where the heck are we now?" "I was fighting the Hulk and... oh, I'm sinking!" Over with the Hulk, he's fighting off the cavemen that are now surrounding him. But then the stone flies around, slamming into the Hulk's forehead. The Hulk groans a bit as he rubs his forehead, but then he slowly reverts back to Bruce Banner. Looking around at all the cavemen, Bruce says, hello? I think I'll be on my way now." But before he could leave, one of the cavemen knocks him out. Back to Spider-Man, he's trying to free himself from the sinking mud. But just as his head is about to go underwater, a giant red tail slaps the muck, letting him grab hold. He's flung out of the pit, asking who is he? And a caveman stands up. "This is Devil Dinosaur, and you can call me Moon Boy." Once the three travel for a bit, Spider-Man asks, "So this T-Rex, you guys are friends?" And Moon Boy tells him, "There are no words to describe our relationship." Well, the guy that, well, not exactly the guy, the green monster I was with, any idea where he went? "I saw no monster, just a normal man, very thin. The killer folk took him." Spider-Man says that there's not a lot of subtlety in that name, is there? And Moon Boy tells him, "No. Though the killer folk likely won't kill him themselves, they will probably sacrifice him to Longlegs." Off in a cave deeper in the forest, one of the killer folk lays Bruce down on a stone slab, calling out to Longlegs, stating, "We present you with a feast. We hope that this will satisfy you and your children." Through the shadows, a long creature begins to slink through, and a giant spider stands over Bruce, beginning to spin its webs around him. But a voice in his head tells him that this is going to devour him and they need to free him. The stone is calling for him. It seeks true power. Let him out. It's long past. Just as Bruce is fully wrapped, the webbing begins to rip, and the killer folk ask, "What is that?" A giant alien-like creature tears through the rest of the webbing and looks at them. "Hello, my name is Brian, and I'm going to destroy you all." As Brian begins to rip Longlegs apart, he sees hundreds of little spiders coming out. Well, he was a proud father. Brian begins to stomp on them, telling them all, "By all means, Dad, bring them on. I love kids, just as my son." But outside, Spider-Man and Moon Boy arrive at Longlegs' cave when they hear something shuffling inside. Before they can get inside, Brian is riding Longlegs out of the cave, tearing him apart while everyone is watching. Meanwhile, over in Norn, Carnilla is searching the dimensions, trying to find the stone when she sees an image of it attached to Brian. She looks at her crystal ball, stating that she can see the stone empowering the one that they call the Hulk. It tends to do that. "Skuld, Erd, Verdandi, conjure some minions and retrieve that stone for me." Back in the jungle, Brian continues fighting Longlegs, and then he notices Spider-Man, telling him that he remembers him. He tries to convince Spider-Man that he knows who he is and that they fought, but Spider-Man is confused. That's not the Hulk, and that's not Banner. But then he notices the stone. Brian simply smells the air, telling him that it's so clean, and he's going to mess it up with some blood. So Spider-Man has one chance to leave. Still thinking that he's talking to Bruce, though, he tells him that he doesn't know what's gotten into him, but do not let the Hulk take over. Brian tells him that he's very wrong, and at that moment, Devil Dinosaur runs in. But as the Devil Dinosaur's head is slammed down, Brian manages to hold back the dinosaur himself when suddenly his face is webbed. But as they're beginning to argue about who should fight and what should be happening with this Brian Hulk Banner monster, the sky opens up and tendrils reach down from a portal, grabbing Spider-Man and Brian. They're pulled up into the air, and they find themselves thrown onto a metal floor where a bunch of aliens surround them, pointing their guns, yelling, "Destroy them!" Spider-Man sighs, realizing that he's now in another situation. Crow the Deviant steps forward, pushing the aliens aside. Seeing the stone in Brian's head, he demands that it be brought to him immediately. As the Deviants are beginning to attack, Brian begins to throw them off, yelling, "Get these things off of me! They're really starting to annoy me!" And as the battle continues, Crow asks if they even know where they are, because it doesn't appear that they do. "Everyone hold your attacks. These creatures may prove useful. Let me show them to Lemuria, the home of the Deviants." Spider-Man asks, isn't Lemuria an undersea continent in the Indian Ocean? And Crow begins to walk them through the facility, with Brian asking what kind of a place is this. Crow tells them that they are in the weapons room now, that the Deviants are quite innovative, useful against their enemies. When Brian inquires who their enemies are, Crow grimaces, stating it's the Eternals. Now follow him, their survey room is just up ahead. In the next room, Spider-Man and Brian see all of the monitors, and Crow says that this is where they can spy on anyone on the world that they wish to. And they begin to have a battle with an Eternals vessel, as Spider-Man is yelling, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa! You're just gonna blow them out of the water? Without even knowing why they're coming here? And Crow tells him that it is simple. They are here for the Matrix, pointing at the crystal in Brian's head. When Crow realizes that Brian and Spider-Man don't know what they're holding this whole time, he explains that when the universe was in its infancy, they were aware of the existence of others and were curious to visit. So they created a series of gems, which are now referred to as the Norn Stones. These stones enable the Celestials to traverse the dimension, but there was one stone made to control the power of the others, and it was referred to as the Matrix Stone. The Matrix Stone has been lost for eons. That is, until now. Brian asks, so it increases the strength of whoever bonds with it, right? Then I could. He begins to grow in size, smacking Crow away, telling him that he's going to dispose of him. Still thinking that it's Bruce, Spider-Man yells to him that he's got to take charge, and Brian yells back to stop calling him that. He clamps his hands together, creating a shockwave like the Hulk does, ripping everything apart and throwing Spider-Man to the side. Then he laughs as he walks over to the dazed Spider-Man. As he's about to kill him, though, he's blasted away. The Eternal Icarus looks down, telling him, "It seems that you are intent on killing him, my strangely clad friend. Are you all right?" As the rest of the Eternals board the base, they are shot by a giant energy rifle, and Brian laughs at him. "Oh, this is a fun toy! Such a shame that you knocked me into the weapons room." However, the portal begins to open and the Norn warriors jump out with Spider-Man yelling, "Not these guys again!" But this time, Karnilla steps out stating that if something is to be done correctly, it is necessary to attend to it herself. She walks over to Brian and just simply tears the gem out of his head. He begins to revert back to his old green self, to his normal Hulk self, with Icarus yelling to drop the stone, but Karnilla laughs and a portal opens up as she tells him that he is truly pretty, but tragically she has other plans. Farewell! Before the portal could close, Spider-Man and Icarus jump through, and after that, the Hulk. And as the three land, Spider-Man asks, "Now where are we?" But in this spot, a larger-than-life Karnilla looks down at them, telling them that they are in Nornheim, children, the realm of Karnilla, who now has sufficient power to challenge Odin himself for dominance of the 9 realms! Spider-Man gets up, stating, "I hate to admit this, but this is way above my pay grade." The Hulk shouts, jumping up, and before he can make it, Karnilla effortlessly smacks him across the land. Icarus yells to release her hold on the Matrix Stone or suffer the consequences. But as Icarus concentrates his heat blast on Karnilla, she laughs, telling him, the power of 100 suns, harnessed by his eyes. It tickles. Suddenly, Karnilla's feet are webbed together, and Spider-Man slams her into the ground, jumping on top and beginning to repeatedly punch her. He continues stating that she must be stunned. He's doing it! Oh, no, wait, I'm screwed. She grabs him by the neck, telling him it's time to die. But at that moment, she's struck from behind. And over in Doctor Strange's Sanctum Sanctorum, Black Cat is yelling, "We did it! Now bring him back!" But back over in Nornheim, each of the heroes begin to take turns trying to bring Karnilla down with no success, since Doctor Strange can't yank them all back through the portal. As Spider-Man begins to get back up, he sees Black Cat standing over him, asking what is going on, and she tells him that Doctor Strange sent her to help. But his spider sense begins to tingle all over again. He turns around to find 3 robed women that can tell that he can sense danger, and they inform him that they are the Norns. They fight the Queen, or at least they try to. But you're not doing especially well, are you, Peter? Black Cat is confused, wondering how they even know his name, and they respond telling her that they are the Norns. All of the past, present, and future are open to them. If it is to be known, they will know it. Spider-Man yells, and they must know that whatever that Horn Lady has planned, it's not going to end well. That stone represents ultimate power, and ultimate power never ends well. Back outside with Hulk and Icarus, they continue to fight against Karnilla. As she continues smacking them down, shouting the power of the celestial beings is now coursing through her. None can stand up to her! She shall rule over. Just then she's grabbed from behind, and the eternal Zurus grabs her, telling her, "Greetings, child. We have not been introduced yet." Though restrained, she laughs. "Indeed! And I can tell that you're exhausting your power to match my size." Zurus tells her true, but he brought a friend. And that's when she sees Odin. "It's nice that you remember who I am, but you seem to have forgotten yourself. You are not some supreme power or celestial force. You are but the Norn Queen, and you have overstepped your bounds." He reaches up, pulling the stone out of her head, telling her, "This power is too fearsome to be allowed to exist." And Zurus asks if he can dispose of it, with Odin crushing it. "Easily." She shrinks back down in size, asking how did Odin know about this? And Black Cat tells her it was them. Well, them and the Norns. But as Hulk begins to complain because Karnilla has begun to cry, they are all pulled into a portal, and they all find themselves back in the Sanctum Sanctorum. Doctor Strange tells him that it took him a while to wind up a dimension sufficiently close to their own, but it is done. Everything is back to where it should be. Spider-Man asks what of the Hulk, and Doctor Strange tells him that the Hulk is back at the crossroads. Ideally, like originally planned, he will live out the rest of his days there. Black Cat throws her arms around Spider-Man, telling him that she saw bits and pieces of what he was going through. We'll have to tell her everything that happened. And Spider-Man tells her, "Trust me, you really don't want to know everything I just did." And that concludes this part of Symbiote Spider-Man, which, looking it up, it appears that there are 5 of them now, so this is the 5th chapter in the Symbiote Spider-Man storyline. I'll give you a link to all the other ones down below, so you can go check them out yourselves. But yeah, this is just fun little stories involving black-suited Venom Spider-Man, but Venom's not, like, awake, because back in this time period, they hadn't really thought about Venom being his own thing. So it's just a suit that kind of makes Spider-Man edgier. It's really weird and difficult to explain, but some of these storylines, Venom does wake up. This particular one, I guess he only woke up when the Norn Stone touched him. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I'll definitely see you next time right here. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and turn on your notifications to know what's happening next right here at Comicstorian, as I attempt to keep you up to date on like 90% of the comic books that are coming out right now. And you can also join us at Patreon, where you get early access to a lot of our products. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you next time right here.